yeah, so yeah, that's basically it now. So I got it. We're good. We're good. So
We're good. We're good.
So much for like awesome first start, I suppose. But
Sometimes it just takes a second, man.
I know. But yeah, okay, we're finally doing this. Sorry, I'm nervous.
Yeah, we're finally doing it, man.
We're finally doing it. Of course.
So we kind of originally put up a. I suppose we should introduce ourselves.
Oh yeah. We're just assuming everybody knows us, but I guess friends would. So we don't have code names or anything, so I'll just go by my name. I'm Mike.
Okay, and I'm Kevin. So easy enough to go along with that.
Yeah.
We've known each other for a long time, but the bigger thing that we're trying to do now is stimulate a good level of discourse.
Yeah.
Make sure that you're going to be up to date on the material, as well as commenting on current events, as well as, actually kind of taking theory and economics and
anything really.
Yes.
Yeah. This is mass Praxis, so of course.
Yeah, man. You got to know what you're talking about before you can just run your mouth, or in some instance, you can run your mouth, and then ideally we have some conversations to start with that.
I was actually, speaking of that, it's very important because, like, the nervousness that I get, I'm like, God, I hope I know enough what I'm about to fucking talk about because, being recorded for posterity is going to have some blowback if you're just going to be winging it. So, also, this is literally the first, like, I guess episode we call this episode.
Yeah, episode. Yeah,
we're doing this once a week, I guess, every Sunday. Things get big. We might do this live. Take chats, I guess. I don't know. I'm thinking like way too far ahead. Let's just see if we can get. Let's see if we can get this. We're in the car. Let's see if we can like go for this test ride. See if we just go around the block at least. So.
Yeah, I think we can do that. Ideally, the wheels won't fall off.
Yeah, of course. So, you mostly had the topics to talk about this week, so which was nice. So what did you want to start with first?
I really feel like first thing that we need to talk about are the things that are going on currently to keep it relevant. And I'm just going to go with all the MAGA hats.
You want to start with MAGA hats? Okay.
That or we can do the cringe video. Either one. What are you with? I mean,
well, okay. So yeah, I so this is probably because Contra has she doesn't put out stuff like rapid firely. It's typically it's there's like usually a month in between videos, but like she's servicing what I would say quality over quantity in this regards. So a lot was covered.
There was a lot of video time in that one.
Yeah.
Man.
Well, I mean, not as long as her cancel culture one, which was basically a feature length film.
Yeah.
This one I would say about an hour and a half, but still a lot of information. And I would have to say probably one of the better ones that I've seen from her, in terms of like the content provided and what she's talking about, and of course hitting close to home, close to base for me, in terms of like relevance. And I guess that's for me that's how I relate and like a lot of Contra's videos. So
sure. Yeah. I don't know if this is happening for you, but it seems like there's a brief interruption, a pause.
Yeah,
when you're speaking.
When I'm speaking, okay.
Yeah.
It's actually a good. Okay. Let me just check my settings.
I wonder if it's a base threshold that you need to achieve in order to be able to talk over that.
Yeah, it's on voice activity. I thought it was on push to talk. I thought. So am I cutting out or something?
Yeah, you're having a brief. Like it's a.
Okay. So what I'll do is I'll just keep. Okay. So I'm gonna do a test here. Did you hear everything I just said?
Yes.
Okay. So,
not when you just went okay.
okay. So, I think that's just okay, it's not going to be a big deal for me because I am recording on my computer. The episode's recorded on my computer, folks. So
Yeah, so then that'll work for you. That'll be fine then.
yeah,
I'm not
because I was actually going to say the same thing kind of happens for you, but I can hear everything that you're saying, so it shouldn't be a big deal.
Yeah.
Okay. What the fuck we were just talking about? I've lost my train of thought. I don't know.
Okay, so we were talking about Contrapoints moving towards quality versus quantity, and really emphasizing the continuation on that. And the most recent video is Cringe.
Yeah. Okay.
So I think this can also tie into the cancel culture video, like you had brought up, is that there is a lot of content that's coming out currently just driving on a belittling scale or making sure that we are invalidating people or they are just existing and it's causing massive problems.
Well, I think the two relate because what was she talking about? The way that it's better to point the finger. This is in relation to the Cringe video. It's better to point the finger than to be pointed at. And she hits pretty hard at what I would assume her sort of like friendly arch rival Blair White in this regard, because I remember that whole incident where she is talking to Jessica Yaniv and hosting that debate, or would you call it a debate, or it was more just kind of like a takedown of some Canadian person that clearly has issues, but
brands, I'm not sure on what that goes. I mean, I just feel uncomfortable just by the fact that it's out there, let alone what's going on with that. And it's unfortunately pretty sad that there's an entire subculture that's entirely relying on a form of entertainment, I'm gonna say
normative entertainment.
Yeah.
Well, what I was gonna say, because like in some way, Cringe is useful. It's character building. It depends. You just have to contextualize it, I guess, in the right framework. I mean, for instance, I believe it's okay to cringe over at other people's beliefs you don't agree with, because I believe it's easier to change your ideas than it is your appearance. Then again, I could be wrong, but I feel like your appearance is part of your own personal self-character, though. What I see, though, in a lot of and this is like for the younger people, with Cringe videos, is the just taking down somebody just for who they are, who they look, what their hobbies. I mean, would you agree with me that there's like certain levels of like cringe-worthy material? Like if there's one level of cringe where you will laugh and poke fun of somebody on their behavior, as opposed to cringing at somebody's ideas that you don't agree with, in a sense.
I would agree that there's certain things that we are okay with doing, and I feel like in a way we as a society oftentimes have begun to vilify certain things that people cannot change about themselves.
Correct.
I want to say because a lot of ways cringe and shame and canceling are all associated, we're looking at the words like mental retardation as one of them specifically. We've attempted to remove the word retarded from our lexicon to make sure that it's not there and it's not considered to be acceptable. Versus if you call someone stupid, all of a sudden that's okay. I've been contemplating on this a lot, because I will see people that unfortunately are not operating in all sectors, or they've been I don't want to say brainwashed. They have aligned themselves with a certain camp and their ideological framework is unfortunately lacking, and we'll identify that as stupid or something that's okay for us to come down on them for, which in the case of a Nazi, that's something that should be the case.
Yeah.
And can they help all those components as a determinist? Are you looking at it? Is that actually free will that they've chose those things? Ideally, that's a product of circumstance, and if we change the circumstance, we can change the person, which is my hope.
Are you talking about, like, because we think in language, so are you suggesting that maybe the R word shouldn't be used so frivolously in terms of how we speak, basically?
I do. I think if you're also looking at a cognitive behavioral framework in psychology, we're trying to make sure that we're not fostering negative thoughts, because you're exactly right. Our most people's thought process is determined in the primary language that we speak, as well as in some pictures,
Yeah. No. Hmm.
visual imagery, and I think that really makes what a person is dependent on, and the language that we use actually can also determine our emotional response, which leads to a different sector. So, for instance, words have different associations. So, if we're thinking a word that will make me cringe is entitled.
Entitled?
I hate that word. I hate that word because when we're using the word entitled, you're always thinking of some snobby bitch that is a Karen thinking that she's entitled to talk to your manager and make sure that the situation is terrible for you because you have somehow slighted her in her perfect existence. Versus when we think about entitlements, or if you're entitled to something, usually that's something that you've made a deal with. And in other cases, that would be Medicare, retirement, Social Security. You are entitled to those things, but then the deal changes. Even though you've made that deal, you still feel like you're entitled to it. But that shouldn't be a negative thing. But every time that you hear, "Oh, they're entitled," right? You immediately start cringing at that person's. You automatically form basically a Karen in your to then go on that.
Well, I mean, the sense of tying, like, social programs like Social Security and Medicare to a sense of entitlement is definitely a very, like, right wing narrative, which is something that I would cringe about because, in a way, they're framing it as something that can be taken away. When, in concerns for Medicare, I mean that's healthcare, and I consider that a right, not an entitlement. Um, I guess for me, like, okay, so the R word is, yeah, definitely. I think something is that the market is definitely flooded with that word. Another, we can always go back to the classical, because we're two cis white males here. The term, the N word is probably another one that should really be approached at in a very contextual manner. Because I actually remember. Do you know the streamer Vosh?
Yes.
Okay, I was bored. I was rewatching one video of him when he was kind of critiquing Destiny. Destiny, right? If you know Vosh, I'm sure you know
familiar
Destiny.
with these names.
Yeah. So he was critiquing Destiny's use of the N word because he was exposed to admitting that he uses it in private. Now, I'm not saying words themselves are bad. How you use the word is definitely important. That's why context matters. So for me, just the way. Fuck. I thought I was going somewhere with this, but basically it's just, be careful with the words you use and how you use them. Basically it is. Because the way that Destiny was exposed, he basically admitted, yeah, I use the N-word in private, without really verifying in how he uses the word. Because if you are, like, reciting, like, old Dave Chappelle jokes, where he obviously uses that word, I don't really see any harm in that. But
Or if you're singing a rap song.
yeah, or your rap song, yeah. But if you're using it in a very derogatory manner, especially against black people, I think obviously those are clearly red flags in that regard.
Yeah.
So,
There's definitely several elements which I think context is important. Now, I abstain from it simply because I think language and thought processes can form habit loops, and most of the things that we say are derived from our unconscious, right? Like we're not consciously responding to most of the things, more of a knee-jerk reaction. So I don't think uh, most people intend to do negative things. We don't look in the mirror every day and say, "Oh man, I'm a terrible monster. How am I going to be able to justify this or do these terrible things today?" Most people are heroes in there.
you want to know what's cringe for me is the people that insist that they want to use the word as if there is a conspiracy, forcing people to not use certain words when really I feel like a lot of people put emphasis on the fact like they want to say the word. It's an old Jurassic Park with Dr. Ian Malcolm quote, like if you scientists decided whether or not they could and not whether or not they should. Like there's, I feel like a lot of people put the emphasis on like, well, I want to say this word and not really clarifying why they should say it,
Yes, there's not an intention behind it, right? Like you have to think that there's an originating spark that goes for that desire to express yourself and what consequences that has. Unfortunately, we don't have that narrative that goes along with that. And I think, especially for people on the left, and when I say on the left, I don't mean what people will call the communist news network.
That's CNN for those playing the home game.
Yeah, that's unfortunately people use that word and they don't know what it means, which is yet another cringe. Let's move on with that, right? Like
right.
If we go on to the neckbeards that are currently doing cringy as shit and obviously infecting people. We've recently seen people from Wisconsin, now given there's a latency period where people need to get tested, that they're infecting each other because they refuse to wear masks or socially distance. But they wanted to feel hard and carry around their rifles on their back, mostly because they're compensated. But
well, you know what the bitter irony of all that is like what I first heard, news reports that I first heard from Kentucky, protesters, a few weeks after they were protesting, a lot of them, caught COVID. And now the same thing I'm seeing in Wisconsin. And that especially rings, very true after the state Supreme Court there ruled that the stay-at-home order was considered unconstitutional. So it's funny that in many ways, we're being held hostage by a small group of individuals packing a huge arsenal here.
I think that's ultimately why people are not familiar with things like the Reichstag fire.
We're going Reichstag fire. Okay,
so we're going Reichstag fire in Michigan at the moment because they shut down legislation. Now,
yeah,
I'm not saying that it's currently as extreme as that, but within the halls of power currently, I would say right-wing radical elements seized hold, and I think that it is blatantly obvious for anyone that's looking on the outside to say that if you are having right-wing extremists carrying firearms into the halls of power and basically halting and obstructing things, which has happened multiple times. It was even before COVID.
right.
Oregon, Idaho, both those places had both legislatures saying stopped within the past election cycle. So I really think we're currently in a dangerous time, and if we're not looking at what's going to be cringe, that behavior should be. The problem is that it's acceptable by the halls of power, where police are just letting them watch on that.
Well, yeah. I think like just the. I mean, if you want to, I wouldn't say this is a cringe word for me, but privilege. If you can kind of look at the contrast between white armed protesters and protests by Black Lives Matter, police defense in shooting who they thought were armed black people when a lot of them weren't, was the defense was I feared for my life. But you got people basically paramilitary storming government buildings and the fact that none of them that I know of have admitted that they feared for their life kind of seems like really shows like a double standard of what's happening right now in terms of like who is protesting and what are they protesting about.
Yeah, I mean, there's a smorgasbord of information that's there, and I mean, some of those in armed forces are the same that burned crosses, right? I mean, Rage Against the Machine wasn't exactly wrong when they were talking about those things. There's multiple FBI reports talking about white nationalists getting into the police force or the armed forces.
Yeah.
The Military Times reports on it. You're looking at in essence, a subversive movement that has been present within the United States and is just now taking off the veneer. They don't need to wear hoods anymore. They can just wear MAGA hats.
Yeah, well, if anything, they should be wearing masks, but of course they're not doing that either. So,
yeah. No, I'd almost rather you wear that hood so then you don't breathe on people. But
I honestly I don't know this, but were there anybody that wasn't white in these protests? I'm not saying that there weren't. I'm just curious if you saw anybody because I didn't.
I mean, I think that you're looking at what is perceived as white versus what is self-identified. America has an extremely racist culture with the one drop rule.
Oh, yeah, well.
And you can be white Hispanic versus, Black Hispanic or whatever else you want to identify, which is a continuation of the, Nuevo España development of their class hierarchy that most people just don't understand and how it's transferred through that. But
yeah, I'm just curious because like all the pictures I see of all these all the right wingers protesting, they're all white. I'm not saying that there isn't. I'm not saying there isn't a black person. I've yet to see one. So
yeah, there's probably I would put it 90%. I'd really like to see the demographics on that, but unfortunately, we don't have like surveys going out.
No.
All these people are walking around
right.
the halls of power with their ARs and AKs.
You know what's funny is because guns, at least rifles, are not cheap, right? You would say, it's kind of a big investment that you make. You're looking at these people who have these guns. They obviously need to save up a lot of money to buy them. I'm kind of transferring into this because I think you and I both know that a lot of these protest groups are AstroTurf. They are being paid for by big donor groups that are like backed by Betsy DeVos's foundations.
Which is crazy because they'll talk about Soros, and I'll tell you, being an active protester or anything else, I would love some freaking money to protest.
Well, I would love to be on the payroll of Soros, but of course, he's a little, quote unquote, a little too greedy of a Jew. Sorry if that was that. I'm totally being like ironic in that sense.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, because like if you're looking like this open America is being backed by big money that wants people to endanger themselves for their benefit, for their profit, and of course that's much more news friendly as opposed to worker walkouts and strikes at Amazon over the fact that they're working in hazardous conditions, the fact that people are complaining that they should be focusing on shipping essential goods rather than dildos. I don't know. Well, I guess a dildo could be considered an essential
I mean,
good.
that's not exact. I personally think that will generate great ratings, but
But
maybe not in their target audience. I mean, but it's the same thing, right? With like, when we look at those arguments, I truthfully believe that we're looking at people that are being manipulated. And when you see the meatpacking plant conditions that are going on, the executive order that says it doesn't matter if you're going into danger, you still have to do it.
Yeah.
By force of law.
Mm.
To me, that could be the equivalent of walking a person into a firing line. That is violent. Saying that, yeah, I know that you're going to be risked in this, but it's a sacrifice I'm willing to make.
I think, yeah. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off if you had to finish. Sorry.
Oh, no, I mean that's the it's the people having a legitimate complaint in essence of, man, my life is getting wrecked because this economic downturn is making it difficult for me to pay my bills. I might lose my house or my business. Those are legitimate concerns,
Right.
but the answer isn't to have you and your fellow man go be forcibly coerced into going into work, right? Like there's obviously enough money to go around considering how much money the Federal Reserve is printing. It's not a question of money. You can apply monetary theory or anything like that. It's not a question of money. It's who's getting it.
In terms of a question of money, it's how much money they can make right now. I mean, what we got? What Jeff Bezos? I don't know how. I don't know how much of a clickbait title it was, but what was it? Jeff Bezos is like on set to become the first trillionaire because his businesses are just profiting at a maximum level due to this outbreak, and they're able to do
considered essential, and they'll say, well, I am not responsible for your life being jeopardized.
Yeah. No, it's profits over lives in this sense.
Let's sacrifice for capital, man.
Yeah. Well, it for me, it's like basically because in a way our government is backed by big business donors, and representatives are funded by big business. Not all of them. I'm speaking vaguely and colloquially.
Vast majority. Vast majority.
I mean, you can look at it the way the legislation's being passed right now in terms of relief effort. But basically, it's the way I see it in the metaphor. It's business using government as a proxy to force people to work for them in hazardous conditions. So it's I guess for me, I was thinking about it. Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom when they're when they first reach the temple and the Nazis are forcing like all these like disposable people to go through the traps to make sure it's safe.
Oh yeah, because essential workers actually mean sacrificial. I mean, it's okay. Send the agricultural workers down there. We'll see what happens.
Don't worry if you die, because remember, we told you you're a hero. But no, that's the sense that I get from all this. I mean, I look at, and I feel like, because I talk to a lot of people that disagree with me, they want to go back to work, and it's not because they want to go. I mean, I would agree that yes, a lot of people do find value in their work. Don't get me wrong. That's obviously much more, to get paid to do something that you like or you find value in, as opposed to just getting a handout. Yeah, it's going to be, definitely be preferred than just getting doled out. But
that's WASP culture, man.
Yeah,
that's Calvinism. They're just hammering it hard. Like there's a reason why people are named Smith, and it's because their ancestors were Smith. People directly tie their occupation to their personal image and their identity.
But a lot of people they want to go back to work because they have to go back to work because relief effort has been abysmal. I mean,
intentionally so.
Yeah.
It's work or starve. Be okay with threatening having threats to your life.
I mean, So we're recording that. What is it today? The 17th or the 16th of April? It's the
17th,
17th of May. Why did I say April? 17th of May. So a lot of states have already begun opening up, having people go back to work, businesses reopening. I know in Ohio, we got hair salons are being able to be open. Bars have been open this week. This is the first night that I decided to ride my bike to work, and I was riding home at night, and I was so fucking surprised at how fucking packed these places are with people. And I'm seeing that in my state. I don't know, what's the situation? I should probably clarify. I'm from Ohio, and Kevin's from Colorado. So, I mean, I don't know what the situation is with your state's shutdown, and like what's planning to be
We
reopened.
opened up before Ohio.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Yeah, so we're actually one of the first blue states to do that. I would say Colorado, major metropolitan areas, specifically, basically anything besides Colorado Springs, is blue, and that's where most of the population is. The rest of it, though, is very, very red. Gotcha. And when I say red, I mean we have some of the highest hate crimes per capita, specifically in Northwest Colorado. There's some of the deepest Trump-supporting counties. And, you know, I'm in Aurora, which is a suburb of the greater, I guess, you know, you consider it. It's one of the cities, the third largest city in Colorado.
Yeah.
It's a part of the greater Denver metro, and you get everything from, it's the most diverse city, but you also get everything from white nationalists to, you know, refugees from Somalia to whatever you can think of. You can probably find it here.
Right.
So it's a little interesting, but there are a lot of people that just are not taking heed to the mask issues, because a lot of people outside of Denver and Boulder they don't think it's necessary. They just don't. They want to get back to quote unquote normalcy, and I hope I am wrong, but I do not see that happening.
I mean, let's just put this on the table. I mean, I understand everybody wants to go back to normal. I think in a lot of ways that's a very whimsical statement. I don't think even when this pandemic's over, a sense of normalcy is not, you know, before the outbreak is not going to return. But, you know, going back to like states reopening, a lot of the states that have, the majority of them have been very red pro-Trump states. We're talking Georgia, Florida, just to name a couple that have opened up very early.
Wisconsin, I mean, right now is transforming into a red state, which is interesting.
Wait, what's transforming into a red state?
Wisconsin.
Well, yeah, Wisconsin.
Ohio, right? Like originally was a swing state, and then that's turning red. Versus you get Colorado, that was a swing state, is turning blue.
Yeah, you're seeing a massive shift in a lot of places. I know I'm from Ohio, and I saw the red flags of it going more red after the 2018 midterms. You know, the iconic blue wave, but of course, in Ohio, the only blue person elected was Sherrod Brown. Everything else was pretty much a straight Republican ticket, which is very concerning because I feel like Ohio's going to be associated less with places like Michigan and Pennsylvania and more with states like Indiana and West Virginia. Which,
I mean, you in West Virginia and Kentucky are looking at that drug overdose problem. So
yes, I know. Also, Ohio is one of the worst places for opioids. Yeah, I think West Virginia's still on top of us though. So
yeah, as a whole, it's definitely above you guys within that.
Yeah, but I kind of digress off the topic. But yeah, a lot of the states that are reopening first is are like the red states, that Trump states like Georgia and Florida, and a lot of other states like New York are kind of holding back. I know Ohio Governor Mike DeWine was like, okay, we're gonna look at everything again on the 29th of May, the end of the month, and a lot of states are doing this because they kind of want to see what's going to happen to these states that decide to open up early, because by that time, because data kind of, you know, is a little slow because of COVID incubation, by the end of the month, you're going to see the results of what happens when you open stuff early. You're going to see the rise of cases. You're going to see the rise of deaths. I mean, people need to understand the whole country, in terms of COVID-19, the whole country is on the rise in terms of like new cases and deaths. The only place where it's not is New York City. So
Yes. So I mean, we're also looking at several other components which make it a little difficult. So if we're did I mess that up? I'm pretty sure I did.
what? Oh, did you? I didn't know if you wanted to share something.
Oh, I do. I want
Well,
to
here, share it. I'll make sure it's on the main screen.
Here we go. I think I have it.
That is not okay. Wait. Oh, wait.
Can you see it now?
No. I see W now.
You see double me.
Yeah, there's two of you and one of me now.
Maybe I had to go through the other one. I don't know what was. Obviously, I'm.
Hang on, folks. Sorry.
We'll see what goes on, but I'm going to I'm just going to send you this link and maybe we can go through it.
Okay, do you just want me to open up here? Hang on. I'm sorry.
I'm just going to type to you here. But an excellent website, which I think you can. So, three ones that we want to look at are World Infometer, Our World in Data, and then COVID Act Now. And I think COVID Act Now does an excellent job at doing differing projections and the danger that's going through there. So I'm sending that to you now, Mike.
Okay.
When we're looking at these things, right? Specifically with the COVID Act. Now, you can actually see which states are going to be within that, and then they give you two different methodologies, right? So, like if we go into Colorado, for instance, right, we can look at the infection growth rate, and you can also see the differing information that comes through. Now, I've actually been pretty lucky considering that, early May, late April,
Wait, where are we going? Where I'm sorry, I'm a little behind. Colorado, okay.
Colorado, and it's going to bring up some different things, right? It's going to say positive test rate, infection growth rate, and ICU headroom.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that this is important data to consider when we're looking at that, right? Because as much as I want to say we need to prevent it, we do, right? But the current projections are looking like we're going to be falling down.
I see you. You're actually, I mean, you guys were peaking like early to mid March, and
yeah. Now, the other thing that I want to say is when you're looking at it, we can see that currently within these 2 weeks that we're still having this downturn. I hope, given because they'll give some Douglas County, El Paso, Pueblo, Denver, Aurora, right?
Yeah.
And you can actually open up those different ones, and you can see the infection growth rate. You can see other components that are going on with that. But the big thing that I think is one of the better things to look at is when you go down the chart, right? ICU headroom.
Yeah, okay, right? I'm there.
Yeah, so the ICU headroom, we can see that there's currently 31% beds occupied.
Mm-hmm.
Similar sense, right? We can see if we go down a little bit lower, you can see some expectations if it does go out.
Yeah,
right?
Hospitalization.
So right now, we're not really able to see that effect because there's at least a 2-week latency period within infections.
Right, yeah.
So we're fortunately, increasing our test rate. But the positive rates decreased because originally it was 20-25%, right? When we're looking at it, peaked in April at April 22nd at 28% positive test rate. So we can still see that was relatively high. The question that will become useful for us is whether or not that we'll see people coming through on this next portion. In Ohio's situation,
Going to Ohio now? Okay.
and you can see that there are still several red
Yeah.
portions, but you guys actually have, and you can see a secondary spike, right? You can see that secondary spike because I think a lot of people got sick of waiting around come Easter. We can see that, and then it went back down.
Mm-hmm.
You guys have plenty of ICU headroom,
Right.
which is going to be beneficial for you guys.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, you can't. Unfortunately, we haven't done a good job as a country managing the unemployment situation.
No. Well, it's because states don't want to pay it. They don't want to pay out the unemployment. They don't want people to realize that, first of all, they're being paid more on unemployment than their actual job, and they're kind of realizing how underpaid they are getting right now. Second of all, they don't want a lot of people to realize that, oh, we can just work from home. We don't have to come in. Probably to a lesser extent, but no, states just don't want to pay. It's just a matter of, well, we can't. It's not a matter if they can; they just don't want to.
I mean, versus if you look at a place like Michigan, which I think has a good set on that. You can see that currently ICU headroom used, but that caps damn near 50%. With the ICU headroom.
That was maxed at what, like April 20th.
Yeah, but you also can't see different variables, like that's ICU headroom for the state, right? That's not
individual county, because there's some counties, like some towns have probably only one hospital. Yeah, with a great distance. Like, people got to keep that in mind.
If you look at the different counties, right? Like in Shiawassee County, there's a 72% hospital infection. And that doesn't give you a very big buffer if you have another outbreak. And that's the big thing that everyone is worried about, is not having enough resources, and then having an excessive amount of people die just.
Right. Well, I mean, that's the fear of like the second wave, is that a lot of places, especially in rural America, are not going to have the capabilities or capacity to treat everybody, and it's going to be overrun. Going back to Ohio, because I just want to say, as a positive note, I live in Cuyahoga County, which was before the most cases, but luckily I believe Franklin County is now numero uno in terms of Ohio cases and deaths, so I'm now number 2. But it's showing like where the infection is growing, because it started in the Cleveland area and now is spread elsewhere. So, the second wave, I mean, the first wave, obviously, the majority of cases and deaths were in the New York metropolitan area. Do you agree? Lesser extent, LA and Seattle, like West Coast over there. The second wave, I feel like there's going to be the epicenter, the hotspots, I guess I would say, are not going to be located in major cities, but they're going to be more spread out across the country as a whole. I mean, do you agree with that or no?
So I mean, the one thing where we actually have a pretty big benefit in America is that it's so fucking huge.
Yeah, that too.
I mean, it's the population density in rural America is relatively small. The only problem is that you also have areas of centralized infrastructure.
Yeah.
That the only place for everyone to go is Walmart.
Yeah. Well, basically, here, going to Ohio, Ottawa County, Wood County, that's Ottawa County, that's Sandusky, that's Huron, Marblehead.
Ottawa County is not Sandusky or Huron. That's Erie County.
Erie County. I'm sorry. Ottawa has like Port Clinton, though, right?
Yeah.
Okay. That's and Wood County. That's what's in Wood County? What cities in Wood County?
There's the thing is that, and I'm sure you can see within the larger map, is that there's not enough people that are reporting the data accurately and to a great enough degree.
Yeah.
And you can see the huge holes in the data that you could literally employ people with that. So I mean, like you could, if you had somebody besides Donald Trump, which is, you know, putting together a supply side economics that promised infrastructure, that promised these things, you could get people back to work. It's just that you would have to get the government to do it.
Well, I mean, that's what's
and
happening right now. The government's being used by businesses to force these people back to work.
yeah, it's just the, if you had a federal workers program, I mean, that would solve the issue. It's just that you can't go back to work doing necessarily what you're doing.
Well, keep in mind, you know, even despite the fact that, you know, people want stuff to reopen, majority of Americans still want to stay the fuck home. They don't want to fucking go out to the bar. They want to go out to the fucking restaurants. They don't even want to get a fucking haircut still. Just because things are going to be open does not mean it's going to be, you know, business back to normal.
No, and there's going to need to be certain protocols that are doing it, and people that are so excited for this vaccine coming out within the next year,
which cool your jets, because it's still gonna fucking take forever. Like people, it's literally the war's gonna be over by Christmas. Like, yeah, a vaccine. I don't doubt that a vaccine will be on the way. It's still going to take a while for it to be on the way. So this is not happening anytime soon.
Don't get me wrong, right? I would love for there to be a vaccine out by September. I'm very suspicious. No, I don't think that it's going to happen that quick. I don't think that it's going to happen.
Well, you know what our country's interesting is because it shows the weakness of our infrastructure and just also our healthcare system. The numbers have probably changed, but I remember making a post that, you know, 1 in 3 of every worldwide new cases of COVID-19 are American, and nearly 1 in 3 deaths worldwide are American. But we only have less than, you know, say 30% of the population. Don't quote me on this. I know
it's way less than that.
Yeah, less of the world population, but we are having a disproportionate amount of new cases and new deaths.
I mean, we're also having the worst economic effects, and I think it's because of the economic system is solely dependent upon that. And
you can either believe that, or you can believe that everybody else is lying about their fucking numbers, and that's why we're the only ones that have the highest ones. So
yeah, it's the application of Occam's razor, right? The simplest answer is probably the most likely one. Yeah. It's just like the people that think that every single climatologist or meteorologist is lying. Grand conspiracy. That's not happening.
I mean, a lot of people in this country were living paycheck to paycheck, and you know, when the brakes were pulled on their income, you had a lot of crashes. And that showed. I mean, looking at the numbers of unemployment, it was just fucking. If you looked at the numbers prior to the outbreak, and then immediately after when the first filings happened, it skyrocketed. I remember seeing that what animation that person did, and it's now higher now from when that was initially shared. I mean, we're reaching levels of Great Depression unemployment. And to think that that's going to be solved by just forcing everybody to go back to work in horrible conditions is foolhardy.
Well, and then you're going to lose productive workers, which is a big problem.
You're going to lose productive workers just not because they're going to die. I mean, don't get me wrong. I really hope not. But there's a lot of people that are going to endanger their lives because they have to go back to work, not because they really want to. It's because they have to, and they're in a terrible situation. But you're also going to lose productivity because people are going to be more concerned for their safety rather than their quota. I mean, I can experience this myself. I'm what you call the hero essential worker class, but I take the time. I don't care what I'm doing. Every hour, I'm taking a break. I'm stopping. I'm going to the bathroom. I'm washing my hands and I'm sanitizing. That's what I'm doing.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, I'm pretty consistently getting put within people's 6-foot bubble because I do physical therapy, and then my clinic's open, and a lot more of my job has become making sure that everything is sterile. And even though I'm expected to keep the same productivity, um, my duties associated with sterility have more than tripled. And don't get me wrong, things were clean before, but now it's just ridiculous the amount of extra work that goes into that uh, to make sure that patients are safe and that we're trying to minimize the amount of spread. Because if someone like myself is carrying that viral load, even if I'm a silent carrier, that still can infect and affect other people in horrid ways. Horrid ways. Um, and unfortunately, that's not being considered until there's people that die.
Right. Well, what's also not being considered is shit. I had somewhere I was going to go with this, but the amount of relief, being provided. It's just not being at all considered. I mean, okay, so as we're recording this, the House recently had just passed their was this CARES 3 Act or CARES 3 Act or CARES 4? Fuck, I'm trying to remember. It's the newest CARES Act. They did have hazard pay, luckily, but the bill also showed emphasis and priority because there was a bailout for lobbyists this time, and this is the House sponsored bill. The lobbyists were put in priority, and I'm going. The lion's share of all relief right now has gone to businesses, big businesses especially, and the average American has so far only seen a $1,200 check. You contrast that with Canada, who can get that amount monthly just by going online and doing a quick application every month.
It's because this is an example of primitive accumulation. I mean, when you look at it right now, there is only certain instances where you're watching massive transfers of wealth from the American people on average to the capitalist class or their puppets.
Well, that's what the Republicans wanted. They wanted, as another solution, another tax cut.
Yeah, no, that's part of it. And the other thing is Mitch McConnell is continuing to promote the idea of states declaring bankruptcy.
Yeah,
and Cuomo unfortunately is daring McConnell to do that, and that's foolhardy as well. I mean, because that's much like the way that cities do that will put severe austerity measures on the state. And that's not going to be productive because it is going to destroy public employee retirement.
Yeah. Well, what is it? McConnell's holding a lot of states hostages because, we're going to do a Mitch McConnell voice, but we're going to give you relief, but you need to cut back on your retirement funds for your
Dude, that turtle motherfucker really just needs. No, man, I don't wish harm on most people.
It's going back to the House, the Democrat House bill. I'm like, listen, just do what you think is what is necessary. $2,000 a month for workers, rent and mortgage freezes, eviction freezes. Put that in the bill because you're going to send that to the Senate anyway, and Mitch McConnell's going to reject it. He's already going to reject this bill. The current bill that's being passed right now. I know that I'm pissed off at the Republican Party as usual for what they're trying to do, but at this point I'm also I'm more pissed off at the Democrats because of just how lackluster the relief effort has been for just ordinary Americans.
Well, I think that really displays exactly that Democrats are not representing the people. It hasn't been that way for a long time. It's just blatantly obvious now.
Well, I mean, listen, I know Nancy Pelosi has, a lot of corralling to do. Because quite frankly, I don't care. I don't think she really cares. She cares less about who's going to be the next president and whether or not she's going to still be Speaker of the House come 2021. So, that involves a lot of ignoring the progressive wing of the party and making sure that those more suburban, moderate centrist districts are still Democrat come the election. And so she's playing to that. But at the same time, you should be promoting, because again, it's gonna, whatever proposals that I advocate, extra, basically UBI per month, rent control, rent freezes, mortgage freezes, eviction freezes, that stuff's gonna die in the Senate regardless. But the point is to send a message that we are fighting for you, because I'm not seeing that a lot on the Democrat side right now at the moment.
You're not going to, unfortunately.
You don't think so?
They've blatantly advantaged the working class, and I mean, unfortunately, the other fact of the matter is that they're overwhelmed with apathy or fear. In the case of Wisconsin, where they had to walk to the polls to vote during an epidemic, which was insane. But the voter turnout was abysmal. I mean, what stopped them from seizing power when there is not a shift with them?
Well, it's funny you bring that up, because actually, it was the Republicans that were insisting on the Wisconsin vote, and ironically, the silver lining of that was Democrats were elected to the state Supreme Court. So, I mean, there's a silver lining in that, I suppose. But, I mean, the fact that, it's still dangerous. I mean, I think about this, in terms of how the national election is going to be held in November, right when I'm assuming we're going to be peaking in the second wave. If it does happen. I would like to be wrong. I would like to be wrong and assume that no second wave is going to happen. But
I share that with you. I would really like to be wrong as well. I really don't want to have a bunch of people die.
But here's another thing that pissed off. Mail-in voting is being opposed.
Oh yeah. Despite the military doing it, despite absentee ballots or anything else, it's always about voter repression.
This is amazing for me, because not only is mail-in voting being opposed, but during this outbreak, especially the Republicans are especially trying to find a way to fucking kill the post office.
Yeah,
they're trying to kill the post office. Office, which, mind you, if were properly utilized, could help out better in relief efforts for average Americans. Because I will admit right now, another reason why most Americans are not getting the relief that they need is because the infrastructure to do it is not there. This is why the banks got the loans. That's why the government made the money and gave them out to the banks, because the banks were the only ones that were able to distribute that money. And in a way, the banks were able to cut as much at the top as they wanted for their share. If you had something like postal banking, every American could just be able to get their relief right through the post office. Just like that.
Yeah. I mean,
if you wanted to start on a sort of a federal jobs program, you could expand the postal service to include banking. It would be a start for me.
Yeah, there's a lot of different options that could be pursued. I mean, you could do tracers, you could do testers, you could do road workers, right?
Well, what is it? What is it? Like the last federal jobs program, like a lot of historic sites in the country, this was the house of writer so and so. Those were made during the 1930s under the federal jobs program. Basically, people were like, here. Become a historian, learn about this, and then that got local historic sites started.
Yeah, but that comes down to job training.
Yeah.
At the end of it, I just think that's crazy, man. But hey, I think
we should probably end it, because I feel like we talked a lot about this.
We went off a little off topic, but that's okay.
Yeah.
We had a conversation on that.
Hopefully this will be broken up into segments of the subject that we were talking about. But yeah, I think this was pretty productive for the first.
It was productive. We just got to make sure that it continues, and we'll shake off the errors that come along. Anything that's worth doing is hard in the beginning.
Right. Yeah. No. Yeah, I think it was pretty good, man. Okay.
Awesome. Well,
I'm gonna let you. Yeah, you got business to do. I hear your business in the background. So.
I get code. Yep. All right, man.
All right. Well, thanks everybody for tuning in. We're gonna get better at intros and stuff. There's no intro. There's no logo. This is just us talking right now. We just had to do this.
Don't even have a logo.
We don't have a logo or anything. So we don't have an intro video, but we'll work on that. But yeah, we'll get more. We'll round those corners better. Yeah. But yeah, I hope you guys found this productive. So if you got stuff, if you're watching this on YouTube, leave a comment. You slap that like button, hit that bell, slap that subscribe. I don't know what they fucking say. But yeah, okay, we're gonna end it here.
All right. See ya.
All right, take it easy.